Hello everyone, my name is Transformer Fan 5000 and I filmed, wrote and directed Transformers The End of Days Part 2, which is a feature-length stop-motion movie. Couldn't have done it without the amazing talent of the cast, and right now I am going to be delving into my director's commentary. It's been a while coming this. I have a lot of notes. I'm going to try and make it as seamless as possible, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. So whether you've seen the film or not, that's entirely fine, because you can either watch the film now before the commentary and get a fresh perspective, and I'm not going to spoil anything, or you can watch the commentary first and go into the film with a knowledge that no one else went into the film with. You'll have all the insider knowledge, all the intense fine knowledge and everything. But yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff about the plot, the characters, and the overall production, and some other little things here and there. But yeah, so grab yourself a hot cup of Energon, and yeah, let's watch the film. Now, as always, if there's any background noise, I apologize. There's currently a storm, and I also have my dogs here as well. Long-time viewers of the channel, you may know that my dogs like to bombard me when I do this sort of thing, and that I can't help. But we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the film if this is the first time you're watching it, and yeah, let's go. Okay. So as usual with this sort of thing, I'm not going to have the volume too high, just so you can hear my voice.
We need to strike Unicron now.
I'm really happy with this previously trailer I made.
To knock Unicron into the portal, Unicron would be severely injured, trapped in a pocket of space nothingness for the rest of eternity.
And the thing is, funnily enough, the version that you're watching right now is based on the final version, but I do have my own, like a final version where I've just made a few final little changes to the film after it premiered, only minor things. One of them was this intro. One of them had a shot of Primer and Alpha Trion during this time-lapse scene because it went on for a bit too long. So I broke it up with Alpha Trion and Primer talking on Earth during the Archaean era. But if you want to see that final version, it's actually going to be premiering when I do my part 1 and part 2 combined. Again, just little changes. Another change I made was in the credits. There was a royalty-free Soundscrate song that wasn't included in the credits, so I went back and added that into the credits. And I made an error on one of the cast members' names on the closing credits, so I went back and fixed that as well. I believe that's all I fixed. So yeah.
The rest of your cult that remain loyal to him.
Megatron is a dead Starscream.
I saw him die. We all saw him.
Turning it down just a slight bit.
No idea what's about to go down.
But it's been an amazing response so far. It's been a long time coming, this, and I think it's definitely something I am proud to have made. And I think the soundtrack on this is really divine. I was kind of struggling what soundtrack to use, and I kind of just said to the heavens, like, show me what soundtrack to use. God, hear me. Tell me what songs to use. And just one after the next, I found the right soundtrack. Like all the soundtrack you hear, when it dips, when it raises, when it slows down, when it's fast, it synced up perfectly to the actual scenes and the dialogue. And I was like, wow, this is made for it. Divine timing. Thank you, God. It really felt like a sign, because someone who's not in the project, you might just watch projects and think, oh, okay, it's just a hobby. But to the people making the projects, whether you're a creator yourself or a voice actor or just heavily involved and invested in, a franchise, I think you'll know when something means something to someone. This is all about a message for me. What story do I want to tell? What do I want to leave behind? And it's such an emotional thing, and I really was invested in this. And then we've got Robert Chambers there. So, fun fact, Robert Chambers is kind of in this film, but he's also kind of not. So, essentially, what happened was Robert voiced Bumblebee in part 1, and he chose not to return for part 2. And, that's completely fine. It's his own choice. I still talk to Robert. I'm still a good friend with him. But he just stepped away from voice acting, in general. And he basically said that if I wanted to, I could, create his voice using AI. So I looked up a few AI software for free. I think one of them I paid for like a month, and it was only about £3-4 anyway. So I just tried it out. It was back when AI was sort of like becoming a bigger thing. It wasn't at the point where it was now, where it's a bit like, oh, it's AI generated. It was at the point when people were kind of more curious about it, and I basically fed the AI his voice, some of his sample clips from part 1 and other projects, and then I recorded the lines of Bumblebee. And I probably did about 5, 6, 7, and some of them was okay, but it just wasn't. The rest of it just didn't sound like Robert. It sounded like a British version of Robert, as he said. And I kind of just said, okay, I will use this one line that sounds good because it's when Bumblebee crashes to Earth. And yeah, this is obviously a spoiler warning, by the way. Everyone, spoilers for this. But it's when Bumblebee crashed to Earth in the Xanthium, and that was kind of like the last time Robert sort of voiced Bumblebee. Me kind of voicing Bumblebee as well. So I should have added myself in the credits there in a way, but and because of the fall from a Xanthium, I kind of wrote it in canon that because Bumblebee had his voice repaired, it's like any injury, it's tender. If you break a bone and then it heals, you're more likely to break it again because it's, a lot of the time it's a forever injury where if you break it again, it's more fragile. And, once you broke it, it's more fragile. So I kind of thought if Bumblebee's going to crash to Earth, his voice might be a bit more fragile. So that's probably more vulnerable. So maybe something happened during the crash that messed his voice up. But when he speaks to Ratchet and Optimus saying, "We tried, I don't know the mission's outcome," then it's possible that after that his voice kind of went bad a bit. I mean, obviously that's when we get the new voice actor for Bumblebee. So yeah, that's a bit of a history lesson on that. But yeah, I probably should have added myself in the credits there. I had a question from Jacob during cast thoughts on the film, I think it was, and he asked if what would have happened if Megatron didn't return. Would Starscream and Barricade have fought? With the old order and new order clashed? And yes, they probably would have. And basically, if Megatron didn't return, there was a 50-50 chance of it kicking off between the old and new Decepticon order in the Nemesis as we see right now. But it certainly would have been a one-sided battle. The Predacons would have absolutely wiped the floor with the Decepticons within seconds. They would have eaten them alive. Not literally eaten them, but you know what I mean. But it shows how powerful the leaders are in comparison, Starscream and Predaking and even Megatron compared to the regular Decepticons, because as soon as Megatron returns, the whole power switches and it becomes an even playing field almost. And one thing I like about Starscream with this, it's not necessarily in... I guess it is kind of in the CGI design a little bit, but depending on what sort of CG render and parts of the films, the Michael Bay films you look at Starscream, sometimes the shoulders are more down and slacking, whereas other times it's more broad and up. This is what I like about the Studio Series Starscream. He's not got that... He has a Dorito body, but it's not like it is in the film. This figure of Starscream is more bulky, and I like how I raised his shoulders a little bit. It makes him look a bit more muscular and masculine for when he's going up against Megatron, because it's like, okay, Starscream's physically a much bigger opponent than Megatron is now. Essentially, Starscream is taller than the he's about the same size as Megatron is here. Megatron is shorter than what he used to be in the Revenge of the Fallen body. That's a bit bigger. The Starscream was smaller than Megatron, but now Megatron's in a new body. It's a little bit smaller. Kind of like what happened in the Michael Bay films, how Megatron goes from like 35 feet to 30 feet. So now Starscream, he's not bigger, but he's on par with Megatron, literally. And one thing I want to say as well is I might not talk a lot about what's going on with the fights. However, I'm going to be doing a fight scene breakdown, and that's going to be focusing on every single fight. It's all about the punches, all about the background. So stay tuned for that fight scene breakdown. Probably going to be in a few different parts. It's too big to do in one video. And look at how easily Megatron's fusion cannon like befalls the Predacons. We kill Skylinks in one shot. When he fights Starscream later, it takes several shots in a row, and they are charged shots at that. Like, he charges them. Whereas Megatron just charges one shot right here and kills Skylinks, and then, the other Predacons, he doesn't really charge his gun at. He just sort of shoots once, like a quick shot, not a charge shot. So it takes the Predacons out like straight away. Whereas what we'll see in a minute with Predaking and later on with Starscream is Megatron is shooting them several times rapidly, one after the next, charging the shots, and they are still taking a beating. It shows how much stronger Starscream and Predaking are compared to like Skylinks and the rest of the Predacons right there. And it kind of like talks about in End of Days Part 1 how Wheeljack mentioned Starscream's becoming a bigger threat, on the same level as Megatron. So it kind of hones back to that, how Starscream and Megatron are like equals now. And like Jacob said in the cast thoughts, it's good to have a Starscream who can physically go toe-to-toe and go the distance with Megatron. The old Starscream, if he didn't get that Energon in Dawn of Corruption Part 3 in the mine, would not have been able to do what he does now. I like this scene because it's different from what we just saw. The Predacons fighting him all at once was absolutely rapid. This is more like Megatron's recognized Predaking's more powerful, so he's taking his time and it builds it up a bit more. And we hear those, like the drums in the background or whatever, some musical instrument they are. I'm not good with musician sort of stuff. But we hear them drums beating in the background, and it's a much not a slower pace fight, but it's more tense, I would say. And while we're on that point, Megatron has been out of combat for a long time, many years. He's more rusty, and he's more prone to attacks. So he can't evade and he can't dodge them as good as he used to do. His countering as well is bad. So if someone throws a punch or a strike and he tries to counter it, it's not as good as it used to be. However, Megatron can take a beating still, and possibly more so than how he used to be able to take a beating before. The thing is, he takes a beating and it fuels his anger. It fuels his drive to go further and punch harder. So, the only reason that he lost, the only reason why Starscream lost and Predaking lost is because Megatron literally has like nothing else to lose. He's fully broken down. He's just angry. He can take them punches because he's just going to go through it with anger. But unlike Starscream, he's got everything on the line, and everyone, like his Predacons, a knockout. But Megatron publicly beating Predaking here is a show of power and force, because he's essentially beating Starscream's right-hand man and his strongest right-hand man, to show that Megatron still has what it takes to be the alpha. And, he uses Skylinks as a demonstration that if anyone betrays him or is insubordinate, then it's going to bring certain death for that person. And in a minute, we'll see the Predacon surrender to Megatron. I like that little bit with Knockout there, when he kind of like looks and then looks away. And here with Laserback, when he's waving his hand to Predaking to try and say, like, it's okay, just surrender. But again, Megatron, we hear the punches in the background, and again, it's a show of force. I really like this shot. This shot's interesting. I had to refilm that. So I filmed that shot once when he's like, will anyone else dare to challenge me? I filmed that, and I basically... I don't like to refilm stuff, especially with stop motion. I like to get it right the first time. There's only been a couple instances when I had to reshoot something. And the first one was Megatron versus Whirl in Dawn Corruption Part 3. I filmed that once, and I was just like, that looks terrible. So I did everything again. I think it was the day after. And then same with Megatron here on that shot when he's talking. He's I filmed it, and I basically looked at it and was like, that is garbage. So I refilmed it the day after, and it was so much better. I got the camera to move, and I got all these little other things doing right. So yeah. But yeah, the Predacons surrendered to Megatron because, they've never had a beating like that in their life. And they only got punched a few times. They've never felt strength like that. So it does speak volumes about Megatron. And when Knockout kneels, it's out of cowardice. Because it doesn't really take much for Knockout to surrender, because that's sort of his personality. I mean, that's okay, each one of these characters has their own limit, and that's okay that Knockout has that limit. He's scared of Megatron. And Starscream does look at Knockout when he surrenders, but it's not like a disappointment look, it's more like a I understand look, because Predacon's been beaten, the Predacons have been beaten, Skylinks is dead. I understand why you're scared. Like, Starscream isn't mad at Knockout. He's mad at Megatron. And he's not mad at Predaking either. Yeah, we got a flashback here to Dark Science, which I love. And we'll have a scene in a moment. We've got a couple of them, actually. Just a few quick shots of Shockwave in his laboratory. And those were completely new shots. I filmed them. This one here. Because I bought the Extreme Sets Decepticon diorama set, and I kind of just wanted to try it out. I think I was filming... What was I filming? I think I might have been filming the Christmas special, because I had that set out at the time. Because last year's Christmas special took place in the Decepticon base. And I think I was wanting to try that out, and I had it anyway. So I was like, let's film this scene here. I didn't really plan to, but I would have done like other flashbacks, or I would have just left it without the flashbacks and just had the characters in the background of a nemesis. But you can see that the shots here, like the flashback with Dawn Corruption Part 3, the opacity is not 100%. It's a little bit transparent. So if you look closely on the shots, some more than others will be easier, depending on what's in the shot at the time. But you can see behind this, the images of a flashback is the actual Decepticons of a nemesis. So it's not like it's cut completely to a new shot. It's like it's laid over it. But yeah, it's an interesting scene. But Shockwave's plan was to kill Starscream before he got any stronger. So let's say if Megatron didn't return and Shockwave didn't kill Starscream, Starscream would have only got stronger to the point where he was, even like worse than Megatron is. And I mean, to be fair, they're both as bad as each other in terms of physical strength. And yeah, Shockwave probably wouldn't have been able to kill Starscream. So Shockwave planned to kill Starscream before he got stronger. Any stronger, that is. But this scene 8, in End of Days, the whole Nemesis scene here, it took about three full days to film. It was very difficult. It like physically hurt my back because I was constantly leaning over, leaning back, leaning forward, walking around the set. It was a tough film, to be honest. And that's the side you don't see of stop motion. Like a lot of people kind of watch it and think, "Oh, that's cool," which it is, and I appreciate that. But also, you know, it's quite quite physically draining sometimes.
I must commend you on your plans, Shockwave. No, really, it was brilliant. The whole thing, very smart. However,
It's actually interesting, this Nemesis set, actually, because you might not notice, but it's actually bigger than what it was in part 1. In part 1, if you look at the little bit in the middle of the floor where it's got like a silver, I don't want to say carpet or rug, but let's just say that it's got behind Megatron there, you can sort of see like a silver middle bit with spikes and sort of semicircles. If you actually use that as a reference for how long the Nemesis is in part 1, you'll notice it takes up most of the room, whereas this set actually unfolded the cardboard box anymore and made the set longer, because otherwise it would have been too crammed and the Nemesis fight would have been so hard to fight. The characters would have been crammed, whereas this is nice. It's nice and open. Characters got more space. Just a little reference there. And the box in the corner behind Skystalker is a white box. I did have a silver box for part 1 in the corner, but I think I threw it away when I did my set clear out, forgetting I needed it. So I had to use the next thing I had, which was a white cardboard box. But I tried to keep it as seamless and same as possible as the original.
We'll obey him for now. After this is over and I'm healed, we'll take
But Starscream and Predaking are the only ones who do not bow to Megatron, and Megatron's acknowledging this. All the Predacons and Knockout bow. Starscream and Predaking basically just say, "All hail Megatron." They don't bow. Megatron acknowledges this, and he's not really attempting to actually rectify it. It could be a mistake on his part because, you know, he's not embarrassing and subduing Starscream publicly in front of his Decepticons. You know, it would be a big show of power for the person who's been leading them all these years to suddenly kneel. But Megatron doesn't do that, and he kind of recognizes that Predaking and Starscream are not going to bow. And even after Starscream and Megatron's fight, Starscream still doesn't bow. He's injured on the floor, but he doesn't bow, and he still doesn't give him loyalty. We'll get more on that later. But we'll see in a minute when Megatron and Starscream are face to face for the first time. I didn't originally plan to do that, but I'm so glad I did, because we see Megatron and Starscream head to head for the first time in a moment. I'll tell you when the shot comes up. But it's a bit of a stare down, and it's kind of like a lack of respect on Megatron's side that he turns his back to Starscream and walks away from him, because he kind of shows like, "Oh, I don't think you're a threat." It's kind of like a lack of respect. Megatron currently isn't aware of how strong Starscream is. So he doesn't know how powerful he is, and he doesn't think he's a threat. So he just walks away from him, turning his back to him.
you have lost all commanding authority. You've gone from the leader of the Decepticons right to the very bottom. You are nothing to me.
But yeah, when we see the those shots there when he's like, "You are nothing," we have a camera shake, and that's the same for, you know, when Megatron is shooting or he shouts or speaks. The camera shakes as a show of power, authority, dominance. mainly when it's Predaking, Megatron, Starscream talking or fighting, no one else shakes because they don't have the power to shake the camera, essentially. They're not a bigger thing. This is that shot, by the way, where Megatron and Starscream stare down and then Megatron walks away. Kind of like he doesn't respect him. And then Starscream shaking his fist. We see everyone in the background there. And Barricade's definitely grinning under his mask, like when he tells Starscream to shut up. He's definitely like smirking. But yeah, it's no one else has the power to like shake the camera in the scene because they don't hold that weight in the scene. And Starscream doesn't have the shakes either in this scene because he's lost control. Where Megatron's got all the power, Predaking a little bit, but Starscream lost his control, so it's it doesn't shake.
And then calculating the most likely point of the impact points towards Madagascar. All likely indicators point to Madagascar.
I'll open the ground bridge now. Autobots, roll
We can see the people to the left and right there. And some birds.
It's coming in too fast. The shape
I'm really happy with how the Madagascar scene turned out. I think it was the first clip I released of the film.
have anything of use.
No, nothing. Unless
Just some further things I wanted to talk about in terms of the Nemesis
during Megatron's first assault against
is
by using my ultra force,
when Predaking groans when he's beaten, we see sort of Starscream's
base was ever attacked. I throw the
face
into the air to the
and
to the half of the
Predaking kind of groaning as the camera is focusing on Starscream, and it's like Megatron is. It's like Predaking is kind of like needing his master's help to overcome this adversary. He can't do it on his own. And I just kind of want to show something quickly. I might go back and forth now and then just to.
Roger, are you receiving anything?
Let's see. Yeah, I might just go back and forth here and there just so I'm able to, show you certain things. But with a scene in a minute, well, I'm just going to try and get to. I'll fast forward it back to this scene in a second, but. This bit here is Predaking when he raises his hand and charges. This kind of Megatron does a quick shot there. So that's kind of like a bit of an advantage Megatron had because Predaking tried to charge his weapon, but Megatron just does a quick charge shot. Not even a charge shot, he just quickly shoots him. So it's a bit of an advantage against Predaking. And then Megatron basically, we'll talk about it more in my fight scene breakdown, but Megatron shoots Predaking's sword away just before he beats him. And it's not intentional, but it's almost like a comparison between how Starscream shot Megatron's axe away in their fight. He shoots it away there. But he did that because he knows... Basically, Megatron shot Predaking's sword away because Predaking's sword would absolutely destroy Megatron in the sword versus axe fight. So Megatron knew that if Predaking got his sword again, that could give him the upper hand. So he shoots the sword away because without it, Megatron can get in close quarters with his punches and his axe and his gun. Because essentially, Predaking's sword against Megatron's axe is... Well, we saw what happened. Predaking just annihilated Megatron. But there was a lot of alternate dialogue that I wrote in this scene. But the cast members did a lot of improv. And I chose the improv over what I originally wrote. The message that they said was the same as what I wrote. But it would... the way they said it was a little bit different. But if you want to see a video where I talk about more of the original dialogue against the improv dialogue, let me know below in the comments. And one final thing that I kind of wanted to mention regarding this fight, which I forgot, was originally when Megatron hits Ripclaw there, she originally groaned in pain, but then I took it out because I remembered that she doesn't need to groan if she's knocked out. If she's been knocked out, she's not going to be like, ugh, that hurt. She's been knocked out cold, so she's not going to be groaning. But I believe that's all my notes I have in terms of this scene. So I will skip ahead to Madagascar and we will continue. If I do think of anything else, I will carry on. But
I did some modifications to it to survive max.
I have more notes on some bits than other bits, so you know, like I said, I might be skipping here and there every now and then, but we'll see how it goes.
Should absorb most of, if not all, the impact of the crash landing. I am to make this throw. I must stop. Right about now.
Great work. Now let's get down there and see if there are any.
Just a bit of a side note, I a lot of the time when I make these, I tend to download the same sound effects from the websites.
Don't see anyone.
But
Are you with
on this one, I wanted everything to be unique to the characters. So different characters have different sounding moves. Some sound lighter, some sound heavier. Some footsteps are heavier than other characters, depending on how big they are. And then each character, I tried to give their own sort of unique sounding weapon. Like Megatron's gun is the same sound effect throughout the entire film, and what it will be in the rest of the end of days parts. And I made folders for everyone's sound effects, like Megatron's gun, Megatron's thrusters, Megatron's jet mode thrusters, etc., which definitely helps going forward.
Wheeljack? Your force field must have reduced the damage of Byzantium's crash landing. Because right now, Bumblebee, Brawn, and Sideswipe should all be dead. Thank you, Wheeljack.
Okay, we're going to the torture scene. Okay, so I've got a few notes on this. So the bar we'll see in a moment. Basically, Shockwave is tied to some chains and some electrical wiring, but it's actually attached to a bar at the top, and that is basically a part of an electrical circuit. You may have guessed. Surprise, surprise. But there's actually a lot of dust in these corridors because no one has really been down this section of his Nemesis in years because Megatron's not been present. Starscream wasn't one for torture either. You know, when we watched Rebellion, Starscream makes a comment saying, "Something tells me you won't break under torture, Barricade." And, Starscream never really had a reason to torture anyone, especially after he exiled Barricade. But we hear some sizzling in this scene with Shockwave. And that's literally him burning from the electrical torture, the lightning / electrical shocks on his body. And he's glitching as well. That's kind of what he did in scene 8, the Nemesis scene, when Megatron shot Shockwave. But he did a lot of damage to his body, but he's literally like burning and sizzling Shockwave. It's very faint, but you can hear it at times. But I mean, if you want to ask me how bad this torture is, it's bad enough to make Shockwave the emotionless guy. It's bad enough to make him scream. It's really, he's broken his body down already by Megatron getting, shooting him. Now he's getting electrocuted to the max, and Shockwave is taking it, but he's hurting. And I really like it how Shockwave is literally still in power. He's getting tortured, beaten by Megatron, but Shockwave is still being badass and just owning Megatron. If he can't physically hurt him, he will say some badass line like, "I am in control, you fear me." Only Shockwave would really be brazen enough and brave to do that to Megatron while he's chained up. But it's kind of funny as well because Megatron is angry in 1 minute, then he laughs at Shockwave, then he's shouting. And it's showing how crazy and emotional imbalance Megatron is right now. He's angry, then he enjoys himself and relishes in Shockwave torture. Then he suddenly remembers that he hates Shockwave, and he's constantly in this state of mentality flux. We'll see that more in the later stages of End of Days, but Megatron has this imbalance. Again, Shockwave just absolutely owning Megatron with this line. Such a badass line. I do like that one.
Even the strongest mortals cannot.
We'll see in a minute. Barricade enters, and I got a couple notes on this as well. Sorry about any background noise. Megatron says to Barricade, "With Optimus gone, it'd be easy to claim the Matrix and everything." So that line, listen to Megatron saying, "With Optimus gone."
With Optimus gone,
Here, with Optimus gone, Megatron is speaking
locating the
kind of in future tense. So even though Optimus right now is still alive, very much so, he's talking in future tense, not currently saying, Optimus is dead right now, but more like Optimus will be dead. It's not a current tense. He's as if to say, with Optimus gone, it'll be easier to kill him, that sort of thing. So he's talking in the future tense. But Megatron is trusting Barricade's judgment here above all others because, he doesn't want Berserker to go into combat. But Barricade kind of says, let Berserker go in combat, show him, let him prove himself to you. And Megatron is trusting Barricade. And it's kind of like Barricade is the only one who's able to pull Megatron out of the retreat later on. Barricade is that only one able to reach Megatron's conscience. That was a word. Because later when we see Soundwave's body, his dead body, Barricade literally is the only one who can mentally reach Megatron. And right now he's the only one who trusts Megatron. And Barricade trusts Megatron completely right now. He's completely in trust for him. So we can see Megatron's already thinking tactically here of what to do. And hear him talk about Berserker right now.
He is the central control node for our Viacon army. If he is deactivated, all Viacons would cease to function.
I understand that, my lord, but while you've been away, I've trained Berserker in many forms of both human and cybertronic.
I'm really happy with the sound design of this film, especially this scene with Barricade and Megatron. All the sound effects and songs and sound design, they were really important to me. Like I said, I really tried to make the sound design amazing in this. All of it was 100% royalty and copyright free, and I really think it turned out really well. For characters like Megatron and Dinobots, when they've got more armor, I've tried to add like armor chinks, clicking sounds like a medieval knight would have with their armor.
You thought it was over. You wish it was, don't you, assassin? The strong and the silent.
Megatron's line here, you can hear it. I thought about making it a little bit louder, but then he's further away from the camera than Shockwave. Shockwave is close to the camera. He's screaming, and we're mainly focusing on Shockwave right now. So it's kind of like Megatron is, you could just hear him. It's kind of intentional that, the focusing on Shockwave and Megatron's a bit more in the background here. But if you pay attention, you can tell what Megatron's saying. I think this was one of the first scenes I filmed in End of Days, actually, the base scenes. And I think I filmed this the same time I filmed scene 14, I think it was, at the end of the film in the base. I think I filmed all them bits at the same time.
Why do I never get any high fives, fellas?
A lot of the sound effects as well are like rocks as well, like rocks crumbling and falling. They sound a lot like robots when you change the speed and the pitch. Or even if you don't, they still sound like moving parts.
Anyway, speaking of being unprofessional,
And it's not shown, but in a minute when the Decepticons are like in the Autobot base territory, the Decepticons destroyed a bunch of stuff off screen in a minute. And even now when the Decepticons are kind of but when the Decepticons are, breaking into the base in a minute and with a siren, like right now, off screen, the the Decepticons are basically destroying a load of stuff. Like they're entering the base, destroying the base defenses, which it signals this HQ alarm. I like this shot here where we see the humans, Clifford E. Deadman. We really see the size of the characters compared to humans, and I like to do that. On this scene here, this shot here with the Dinobots, I love how when they are running, and especially Slug right there, the camera shakes as he runs to the camera. I really like that. But yeah, again, this shot here, the Decepticons are already in the base, so just imagine off screen, they have destroyed a bunch of like telecommunications, tanks, cars, humans, you know, the lot. Off screen, they've destroyed some stuff. I was going to include that, but I decided not to. I like that shot there where Megatron just flies past the camera. You can see Ripclaw in the background there flying too, and all the Decepticons in the background just kind of blurred out. There's loads of Viacons there, like it's a full Viacon army. You'll actually see in a minute, these scenes when Optimus is talking up close, his mouth moves, but the light is so shiny that it reflects like his shoulder grey piece. And you can see Optimus's mask in that shoulder grey piece reflecting. So what I did was when Optimus talked, not only did I move his mouth, but I moved the reflection of his mouth on that grey piece, so both moved at the same time, just to add that realism to it.
I've known you for millions of years, Megatron. I know you'll just do that anyway, even if I were to comply to your demands.
Wait, that's Megatron? He looks so different from what me Grimlock remember.
One thing with Grimlock is he's not met Megatron before. When he says he looks different from what he remembers, Grimlock was being trained by Ironhide, so he was taught in history classes, essentially, who Megatron was. He was shown pictures of what Megatron looked like. No one knows Megatron looks like this. So when Grimlock sees him, he's like, that's not Megatron. That's not what I remember him looking like in the history text. So I like that shot there where Ironhide is like controlling Grimlock. And Optimus is kind of like just looking at Grimlock and Ironhide like, really? I thought he was trained, and then looks back at Megatron. And Grimlock is supposed to be setting an example for the rest of the Dinobots as well.
Although I am unsure as to whether or not these Dinobots are natural or genetically engineered.
I see. I suppose a creature as hideous.
And Grimlock is mad at Megatron just for insulting him. That's it. He's wanting to prove that he can fight him, which he does kind of fail at as well. But yeah, it's literally he restarts part of the war because of that. I love that these shots here as well. And Grimlock kind of beats Megatron at the start. And although Grimlock is menacing, he's powerful, he's tough, he's strong, he lacks that finesse. And Megatron easily, like now, he's learned him already. He knows he likes to swing his big weapon. So he disarms him, then breaks him, and swings his axe and literally gets Grimlock on the floor. So although Grimlock does kind of beat Megatron at first, Megatron works out Grimlock's fighting style pretty quickly because Grimlock is a lot younger than Megatron. So yeah, I love that shot how Megatron just gets shot away by Optimus in his arm, and then yeah, it just kicks off.
See this attack, Megatron. We can work together. If only we can try.
Never.
There was little spark effects as well. I kind of did that as a little bit of a reference to Michael Bay because he does those spark effects.
I could see the fear in his optics.
And the got Berserker coming up here. One thing I forgot to mention about Berserker, I'll pause it here, is on these shots. Let me just find it. Where is it? There is a shot here. So where Barricade is, just to the left, if you look closely, there's like a bit of a blur here. That's Berserker. And you can't really see it because he's kind of behind Megatron on the green screen, but that is Berserker there. You can see it in more shots than others, but yeah. And also blood warning for this next bit. And I basically made the Berserker scene, you know, I wrote it years ago and I was like, yeah, this is going to be cool. And then over the last few years, I've got really squeamish. So when I was editing this, and probably now when I'm watching it, actually, I was just feeling sick as I was editing. And this is really Berserker's personality. It's like, oh, a rock. Let me weaponize a rock. I want to try and weaponize it. That's just Berserker's personality all over. Absolutely brutal. I'm kind of looking away just at my notes at the moment, just so I don't get sick later.
I can taste their fear in their blood.
I do like how it goes from that scene to this scene, and although it might seem a little bit more upbeat, it gets dark quickly. This is what I try and do in my series. I try and make it real how it can be happy 1 minute and the next minute can be really sad. I try and add that realism and seriousness to it. And a lot of these fight scenes, Lockdown Brawl, Barricade against Ratchet and Ironhide, and then we had Optimus, Grimlock, and Megatron. Those fight scenes, I had to do the sound effects in a separate editor to the actual footage because my, program and the computer was just not handling it very well. Yep, starting to feel a bit wheezy right now. On that shot as well, so this bit here, where Blackout comes down, originally he was going to transform into robot mode and then get his gun out and shoot them, but he doesn't because, one, it was easy to animate as it is right now in the helicopter mode, but it's also nice to show the vehicle modes being used in combat because a lot of the time it's just, vehicles driving around, flying, then it's the robots fighting, doing all the action. Rarely do we see vehicle modes. I do brawl a little bit in tank mode, and that goes for this project and other projects like Dawn Corruption Part 2, brawl uses this tank mode. But I just kind of want to show, the vehicles are pretty dangerous as well. And, I feel sometimes the vehicle modes are underused. And then he gets shot by a Wheeljack in a minute, so that starts the next fight off.
Although I did expect more of a challenge.
But it all kind of leads on to one another. We got all these different fights going on. And I mean, straight from Wind Raider, it took about 3 or 4 days to make. Some were full days of filming. Some were half editing, half filming. But, it was kind of on and off.
Autobot at 2 o'clock. Eliminate. Yes, sir.
Damn. Injured and unarmed.
Well, B, you've been in some tough situations, but you would have thought by now you'd have grabbed a gun from the armory the moment you heard shots fired and not just get out.
And this bit here as well with Bumblebee, when he's saying, I'm unarmed, but then he had a gun in his arm. He's kind of got a bit of amnesia. Don't forget, he crashed to Earth, so he's a little bit disoriented. He's just woken up after being in like a stasis mode, induced by a Ratchet. He's got a concussion from the big crash, and he's also probably fueled up on Transformers medication to get better. So he's not thinking straight right now. So he kind of forgets he's got a gun. And as the fight goes on, he starts to mentally get a bit better. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got a gun. I can use it. So, yeah, that's a bit of a thing there.
One pot, fellas. I expected better from Megatron's top lieutenants.
So did we. From the
I like that insult barricade to Ironhide.
Then, come on. I'll scrap you all.
That shot right there, I'll talk about it more in my fight scene breakdown, but that shot where Ironhide kicks Lockdown, that's actually in slow motion. So it's supposed to like be slow so you can sort of see it. I love this shot here where he transforms and goes back to robot mode and uppercuts Lockdown. I do like that. AC-13 now. So AC-13 is Academy Move 13. So Lockdown may not necessarily know this since he wasn't part of the Decepticons originally, but Brawl and Barricade do definitely know it. And it's basically surround the enemy, attack him all at once. One of us will get him. And that's essentially what would have happened if Ratchet didn't interfere. Ironhide didn't have time to react to all three. He had two of them, Barricade and Brawl, but he didn't have time to react to Lockdown.
All right, Lockdown. I've waited years for this.
Here we see the Autobots being more aggressive than they were in previous installments. And it kind of hones down back to 1518 Days Without an Accident, where Bumblebee tells Predaking, you know, we're no longer going to be soft. We're going to start pushing back. This is kind of what it was.
That was unexpected.
This shot here where Optimus and Megatron clash blades for the first time, I wanted that to be like a, oh yeah, such a badass moment. Like the first time Optimus and Megatron are fighting one another. The first time in years, and yeah, I just kind of wanted to show like, oh yeah, it's all kicking off now. Optimus and Megatron going at each other, like, yeah.
That wasn't nice. I was only trying to help.
I like this shot here as well with the human and the dog and transforming in the background. Again, like the Michael Bay films, you know, I kind of want to show how the humans are a lot smaller than the character of the Transformers. You know, the low angle shots, the camera shakes. When the Transformers are near, their size and strength from the human's point of view, the camera, you know, is showing how big they are, and when they walk and stomp and punch and shoot, the camera shakes. And it's kind of showing, you know, they're not plastic toys. They're huge. And it's like the viewer is the humans in that sense. I'll just go back a little bit. So it's like you're the viewer and you're watching it from these humans' perspective and you're looking up at these big robots shielded behind this massive trailer. So it's what we're seeing from their point of view. But yeah, like I said, when Megatron and Optimus clash blades, you know, on this bit, just on this bit, I kind of wanted it to be like, hell yeah, this is a Transformers sort of moment. That's kind of what I was going for, just to go back to there. But I found this bit funny where Laserbeak just charges into Megatron by accident. You know, he doesn't have time to stop. And Megatron's just kind of, you know, just like listening to Laserback, but also just dumbfounded by his stupidity. But I mentioned that the final version of the film that I've got that you'll see in the part 1 and 2 combined and all future combinations of End of Days, there is a shot right here when when Laserback crashed into Megatron. It's like a flicker for one frame when it goes really bright. There. That I fixed on the final version. I noticed that and I fixed it. So that's another change I made. Again, just little changes.
Funny story. I was fighting another Autobot before this. That wasn't nice. I was only trying to help.
But I do like this bit with I keep saying Laserback and Laserbeak. I like this bit with Skystalker and Grimlock. They have like a roar off where they both roar at each other. Skylynx is like, yeah, roar. And then Grimlock like, roar. He really screams and Skylynx is like, oh no. So Grimlock is more powerful. He had a louder roar. And then he literally just chomp Skybite in half. And that's kind of what I said about the realism. I kind of wanted it to be like, oh wow, it's literally real, you know, death is real, and Grimlock just instantly just beats Skylink straight away. Like, they bump into each other, Skylink transforms, roars, Grimlock's like, no, I'm roaring. We see a camera shake, he steps in him, picks him up, bites him, dead. So yeah, that's how quick it can change. But Optimus Prime's going all in. He's focusing on the humans, you know, the dog and the two humans there. But, he knows where they are. But Grimlock is in the battle, and, you know, he's sort of contributing, but Optimus is more focused on the humans and Grimlock and Megatron at the same time. Because he recognizes that although Ironhide's training was good, it may not be finished. And Optimus recognizes this and knows that he can't fully rely on Grimlock. He has to keep an eye on him, the humans, the dog, and Megatron, and everything else at the same time. So Optimus has that situational awareness.
Where's Grimlock? Last time I saw him, he and Prime were taking down Megatron.
I like this shot coming up where Scorn and Slug both transform and like charge off. That's one of my favorite shots in the film. And I like how we blend back into Knockout. And you can see the sky in the background. Every time there's a piece of like sky footage in the background, usually, unless it's only like a second shot, like for a second, the sky is moving like the clouds to add that realism to it.
And Knockout gets knocked out.
I do like this scene here. I had so much comments about Soundwave. And Soundwave looking at the control panel there to shut down Nest communications, as Megatron said. He's kind of like deciding, okay, do I shut it down first or do I beat Bumblebee? And he chooses Bumblebee because realistically, if he goes to the control panel, Bumblebee's going to shoot him. So he needs to deal with Bumblebee first. And this flare, flicker, and fade is a reference to the IDW comic. And when he says, you know, killing Ravage, the camera shake right there. And Bumblebee essentially beats Soundwave because he shoots him with plasma rounds, which are Transformers' weakness. But he shoots his shoulder, head, and other shoulder, and then he does it again. Then, you know, those joints are already weak. So when they're shot again, you know, it's really bad news, and he just rips them off. I'll go more into it in my director's comment, my director's commentary, my fight scene breakdown. But yeah, I'll explain more in that. And that shot there where Barricade gets flown to the wall and we hear that hurt, that's actually Barricade saying that hurt, not Brawl. No, sorry, the other way around. That was Brawl saying it, not Barricade. They have the same voice actor, so you might think they sound similar, but basically it was meant to be a bit of a comedic moment. Like, Barricade's been beaten up, Brawl like looks at Barricade and says, you know, that hurt, didn't it? And Barricade's like, yeah, it did. Really happy with this fight scene right here. This shot coming up where Berserker tackles Bumblebee. He punches him in the face 15 times in 3 seconds. So that's 5 punches per second. And we kind of see Berserker, like, in the first few punches twitch a little bit. And that wasn't intentional, but I kind of left it in there. It happened in the animation when I was filming, but again, not intentional, but I kind of like the little twitch he did, and I kind of thought, you know, I'll leave it in there. But, you know, props to Wind Waker's voice actor here. His desk grunt in a minute is amazing. And we can see a spark in there. There's 2 layers to that spark, but the purple and the blue layer. And you can see it fading in and out and pulsing. But in a minute when Wind Waker died, he does a grunt. And to me, it reminded me of the desk grunt that the Autobot hero grunts on the Transformers Autobots DS game. When he dies at the end of the game, there's like a little bit of a grunt when he's like, and he sounded exactly like that. And that was natural. That was no editing. And I'm like, wow, I gotta use that. I'm so glad I You'll hear it in a moment. Now, in a sec, now. So that grunt there, and then his spark fades away. But I'm really glad when I animated it, his mouth, I moved the blood with his mouth. Originally, I wasn't going to do that, but I wanted to take that extra time. And then we see Strafe shoot him with an arrow, just to make sure he gets finished off. And we'll see in a minute. This shot might feel a bit too long, this next bit, but if you focus on this, you'll see why. Where his head is, the pool of blood is expanding. It's getting bigger. And that's kind of why I wanted it to linger a bit longer, just so you can see the blood kind of expand a bit more. But on that bit, I'm just going to cut back. This bit where Strafe is like, you fragging coward. Just before that, Slug originally had a line where he should have said, is he still alive? I still have that audio, I believe. But I decided to cut it out. And I don't really delete scenes or footage unless there's like an alternate shot of a character's face when they're talking. Sometimes I remove certain lines if they don't add weight to it or if the scene doesn't fit it correctly. But yeah, on this bit here where just before Wind Raiser speaks, originally Slug was meant to say to Strafe, is he still alive? And that's when Strafe gets his crossbow and actually shoots Wind Raiser in the head. But I think Wind Raiser getting shot by the arrow was improv when I was filming. Originally, I think he went up and stabbed him in the head or stabbed him in the spark again. But I wanted to do this low angle shot when Strafe is shooting him because it kind of reminded me of Daryl Dixon on The Walking Dead, how he shoots walkers in that show. And a lot of the time it's from like a low angle shot and Daryl just kind of walks up and shoots him with his crossbow. But yeah, this was another scene where the sound effects had to be separately done in a different editor to the footage on Hit Film. This Strafe and Wind Raiser fight scene, that is. Oh, this bit, yeah, Laserbeak. He's like a Labrador. He's strong, but he's happy. He's full of love. And he's not too overly protective. He's just a lovable character. But he's also kind of stressed. But Scorn on this bit, he knows Laserback is scared. And although Scorn's a Dinobot, big, strong, he's not an animal. And he knows that he's not going to fight Laserback. There's no way Scorn would fight Laserback right now because it wouldn't be a fair fight. It'd be straight up brutal. Scorn here, I'm just going to rewind it. Scorn here has some dignity and respect. He understands Laserbeak. He understands Laserback's got anxiety. And I kind of wanted to bring this to the audience, that they see it as well, that Scorn spares Laserback. Other Dinobots, Grimlock probably would have fought Laserback and just, brutally beat him. I don't think they would have killed him, but they would have really hurt him. Whereas Scorn's got that dignity, respect, or empathy, and he spared him from having to go through further fights, forcing Laserback into a retreat. So I kind of wanted to show that, and I hope the audience sees this and like Scorn just that little bit more, whereas the other Dinobots might have been a bit more aggressive. I think Scorn may have been a bit more understanding a little bit, because he kind of knows what it was a bit like to go up against Twin Strike and Scorn have to save him. Slug may understand that, but yeah, some of the other Dinobots may have been a bit more aggressive in that sort of thing with Laserback just there. Just quickly checking if there's anything else on that. I don't think there is. I have so much more notes to go through as well. This bit here as well, I'm just going to pause it. I'll talk about it more in my fight scene breakdown. This bit here, so we see Skystalker's body's kind of put back together after being bit in half. So, okay, so Grimlock is still mad at Megatron for insulting him and wanting to prove that he can fight him, which he does, but he fails that a bit. But once he backs into Skystalker and kills him and bites him in half, he kind of plays with him a bit. kind of like a kid playing with his food, that being Skystalker in this instance. So Grimlock's like a little kid, you know, he's losing focus on the fight and he's a bit bored of it, and he kind of sees Skylynx and he's like, I've ripped him in half. How fun would it be to try and put him back together? And he kind of tries to put Skylynx's two halves back together. And we kind of see the bloodline a bit there as he's squishing them back together. So he's playing with his food. He's losing focus on the fight. He's getting bored. And he's also getting a bit bored of Skystalker's body. Now he's kind of putting back together. Grimlock's a bit like, oh, I'm kind of bored now of Skylynx. Skystalker, sorry. There's so many skies and lasers. I was meaning Grimlock and Skystalker. Apologies if I just said Skylynx. Skylynx is already dead in the Nemesis. But yeah, Grimlock is getting a bit bored of Skystalker's body as well now. So we'll see that later, but he's playing. This bit I like here. So when Grimlock turns, he sees the dog, German Shepherd. I had a German Shepherd called Max. You know, rest in peace, Max. Hope you're having a blast in heaven. But Grimlock kind of nods at the German Shepherd and the humans, and it's like he's formed a bit of an animalistic bond with the dog called Max. I named it after my dog, like I said, because they're both animals at heart. And Grimlock, because the dog's smaller, Grimlock feels a need to protect the dog, the Max. And I guess he also feels a need to protect the humans too, but not as much as Max. He wants to protect the dog more. But that's why we see here, as Megatron goes to shoot the humans, look how quick Grimlock jumps in. He just full on just charges that Megatron. I love this bit as well where Megatron gets distracted because Optimus like points, like, what's over there? And Megatron's like, what is over there? And he turns and looks, and then Optimus just takes advantage and just punches him straight in the face. Again, we see Skystalker there. Berserker there as well. He's like, I want to stay. Barricade line here, get going Berserker, is one of the last lines to be added in the project, actually. Really like this ending to this fight. It's kind of tricky to find the order, what to put these shots in, but I think I got it pretty good. And everyone is just absolutely just running.
Sir, what do we do? We're injured, low on numbers, and outgunned.
We make our stand here and fight.
Lord Megatron, what do we do?
We gotta retreat.
You guys all know I'm all for fighting, but this right here is...
Megatron actually retreating here with his troops. It's the only noble and kind thing that he's going to do in this project. Mainly because he's not reached where he is later on in End of Days. So we'll see more like deterioration in Megatron. It's kind of similar, not fully similar, but it's in a way kind of a good reference like what happened in Kingdom with Megatron in the Netflix series. It's not the same, but I like how I have this Megatron who slowly kind of loses himself a little bit. He's not who he used to be. I don't do it the same route, and I wrote this years before Netflix series release, so this is all like my own unbiased story before I even saw Netflix. But yeah, it's really the only kind thing he does, because he doesn't know Soundwave is dead. He still trusts Barricade. He cares for him. He cares for Soundwave. So he wants to try and get them out alive. But as soon as he starts, to realize Soundwave is dead, and he starts to care a bit less. So right now, him retreating with his troops, because Megatron could literally just fly back to the Nemesis if he wanted to. But him retreating and standing the ground with his troops is the only thing he really can, only nice thing he does in the project. The rest of it is pretty bad.
Not how we become one with the Allspark.
We'll get through this, soldier.
But this scene is pretty rapid. People are talking over one another. And then when that Viacon gets shot in the back, it goes quiet. And it's like a shock to everyone and the audience to take a second to check reality just before proceeding with the next conversation and appreciate and take in the gravity of their situation. That is pretty serious. But it's pretty quick, this scene. There's certain scenes where we see I don't want to say corridor, but this like between the two brick walls and the road to the Autobot base where we see in a minute and previously, you will see like characters running, and that's supposed to be Optimus, Flak, and Ironhide. And we see the Nemesis in the background there. Interestingly enough, I'm just trying to find my notes just to make sure I get everything. And we can actually see there Megatron's fusion cannon getting overheated there. I'll probably talk about more of that in the fight scene breakdowns. But here, so when the Nemesis arrived just a minute ago when I was talking about it, originally when the Decepticons, in fact, I'll get this shot back up. So this bit here where the Nemesis come in here, and then Barricade, the other Decepticon, looks over. Originally, their Nemesis hovered over them, directly above them, and it casted a shadow slowly. Like the shadow, like slowly consumed the entire screen. So imagine Barricade looking up and the Decepticon and then this big like shadow coming over the screen. That happened originally because of the sheer size of it. You know, it's huge. It blocked out the sun. However, the Nemesis is actually far away because it had to park over there so it didn't crash into any other buildings. So it didn't make sense to have it far away in one shot and then really close in the next shot where the Decepticons were looking up, then far away again in the next shot. So it's more realistic to have the Nemesis further away and just get rid of the shadow being casted out. And that line there, Barricade saying to the Nemesis Decepticons, that was and these a couple of other lines that come in from Barricade in a minute. When he talked about Soundwave being dead, they were last minute additions as well to Barricade's lines and the project. But I'm glad I got them in. They're really good lines. So thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate that if you're watching. So yeah, a lot of different versions of this scene. Well, not a lot, 2 versions. This version and then another version with the Nemesis casting a shadow. But like I said, the Nemesis was away in one shot and then back in the next. So it didn't really make sense for that. And this scene coming up here where the Autobots are looking up at here. I'm just going to pause it. This scene here where the Autobots are looking up, originally Ironhide had an extra line saying, should we chase them down while they're weak, finish them off? So it was a bit of an extra bit of dialogue. Should we chase them down while they're weak, finish them off? And then that's when Optimus replies like, no, Ironhide. But in a minute, we'll see the background shot of the Autobot base. We'll see Grimlock on a trailer and Skystalker. And that's when I kind of going back to how Grimlock was playing with Skystalker because he got a bit bored of Megatron. And basically that's where Grimlock was getting a little bit bored of Skystalker as food. And he was, kind of just basically setting him on fire. So we'll see in a second. There, he's sort of setting fire to Skystalker now. He's just burning loads of stuff because he's bored. And the camera is panning up to the sky, and the sky moving in the background as well. But the camera's panning up to the sky because that's where we're going. That's where Megatron's gone. He's gone up to the sky like now. We'll have to keep scrolling down a little bit. Now I'm just going to pause it because I do have some final bits to say about the base battle. Some bits I've touched upon, gone on the scene already, but some bits I haven't. So just in this last bit here, so as the base battle ends, we hear the warning siren sounding, kind of like it did earlier. And we hear sounds fading in, like we hear sirens, we hear you know, the wind a bit more, and it's basically like you're coming back, the adrenaline's wearing off and you're coming back to reality. So you went from the big adrenaline battle rush to calming down, being aware of your surroundings as the routine sound effects fade in slowly, and it brings us back down to reality from all the chaos. And then that's when we pan up to the sky and see Megatron. So we hear the warning siren coming from inside the base, kind of like the warning sirens in the interior of the Autobot base, but someone left a door open basically, and the sound is spilling out from the inside, from the interior to the outside. And then we also have emergency sirens like Nest troops rushing to secure its casualties and putting out a fire. So yeah, again, it's like those sound effects are slowly drawing you back down to reality. You know, the warning siren, the fire, and the ambulance and the police siren sort of things. Because now the base battle ended, there's humans injured, Transformers injured, everyone's rushing to secure the casualties, basically. But like I said, this next shot here, we see Grimlock Skystalker setting him on fire, and we're panning up to the sky because, again, that's where we're going to go with Megatron flying to the Nemesis. Kind of like how, if you remember in part 1 of End of Days, as the space battle ended, Starscream flew from the Xanthium up to the Nemesis in space, and it kind of had a bit of a music transition in that shot. This is kind of the same thing, where Megatron's flying up to the Nemesis because they've lost, essentially. But just in relation to this sort of retreat bit, so this bit here where the Autobots run up and eventually, basically, they're running up to Megatron, but because of the Decepticon, you know, like barricade, blackout, brawl, and Megatron shooting in their direction, it means these 3 characters, Optimus, Ironhide, and Flak, and the humans are trying to run up to get where Megatron is, but because they're getting heavy fire, they have to take cover every now and then. So it's a really staggered approach. You know, they're running, then they're stopping, then they're running. But we do see, let me just go back a little bit further. So here, so essentially the base is back there. This is Optimus, Flak, and Ironhide running. So this leads one bit to the base. But basically around here, this sort of, again, it's not a corridor, but I'm just going to call it a corridor, an outside corridor. There's loads of sections of this base where the Decepticons are now. There's loads of different paths like this corridor here that are leading to different parts of the base, and that's kind of how Blackout and everyone's looking at different corridors and paths. They see Soundwave dead, and there's lots of multiple pathways and roads leading to where the Decepticons are. And we kind of see where the Decepticons are hiding. You know, we see many different angle shots of showing different paths. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm just going to quickly play the rest of this. I have a couple final things in regards to this scene. I kind of want to talk about something just at the start of the base. So I'm just going to play it from here, and I'll skip here, you know, bits. I kind of want to talk about the Dinobots quickly. So the Dinobots are like loose cannons. They seem under control by Ironhide. You know, he's like, okay, that they're trained, they're well trained, they're ready for combat, and Optimus trusts Ironhide. But it's kind of one of those things that when it hits a fan, it really hits a fan, and a lot of the training the Dinobots did, especially Grimlock, it kind of went out the window. But later on, I'm not going to spoil anything, but later on in End of Days, we're going to see how the Dinobots' personality grows and how their in-field learning more than the classroom development changes the Dinobots' behavior and their personalities. Some of the Dinobots are more calmer than others, less experienced. You know, when the Dinobots are going up against the Predacons, the Dinobots are less experienced than them, which is why, you know, Slug and Strafe and Slash, they all get overpowered by the Predacons, whereas, you know, Scorn, who is probably the best out of all of them and the most powerful, just as Grimlock is, they have, well, Scorn has a better head in battle. He's more focused. Grimlock is on par with Scorn physically, but, you know, Grimlock doesn't have that focus as Scorn does. So it shows a different personality in battle. You know, again, they're not as experienced as the Predacons. They get beaten, but Scorn is the only one who's got that level head. And if Grimlock focused a bit more, which I like to develop his character in the future, as I mentioned, hopefully Grimlock gets a bit more calmer, you know, a better head.
I'm glad you still recognize me, brother.
But
Decepticons couldn't see through my new
yeah, Scorn is the only one who didn't get injured in the base battle. Grimlock got injured by Megatron, but Scorn was fully focused on saving his friends, and Scorn wasn't trying to prove himself like Grimlock, but he was trying to prove more that he's capable in the field. Grimlock just focused on himself and his fights first, and he didn't really focus on anything else, apart from the dog, Max, and the humans. But other than that, he didn't really focus that well. So Scorn is really the only Dinobot who's good in this, really.
That information is neat to know. And right now, all you need to know.
Just a few final points. I'm just checking through my notes. So this scene here, this shot here, we see Wheeljack for the first time because I got the what was it? I forgot what APC toys rebranded themselves as. Was it Iron? I want to say Iron Warrior, but I don't think that's correct. But that Wheeljack there is a KO figure, but we see him for the first time with his face, without his battle mask. However, we'll see here Wheeljack has his face visible. And then, I'll probably talk about this more in my fight breakdown, but this shot here, Wheeljack has his battle mask equipped as he runs in battle. So he can be seen equipping his battle mask just as he runs into battle when he's taking on a Stockade. And, you know, Wheeljack notices that Stockade hits flak to the ground, so Wheeljack kind of like changes direction and fights Stockade. Interesting fight that, actually, Wheeljack in Stockade. Of course, Flak and Rollbar take on Stockade, and Wheeljack goes to the Viacons and Blackout. And Rollbar, we can see in the background, he kind of like skids and swerves and shoots Stockade from behind. And then obviously Ironhide comes in, tries to shoot Lockdown, and Lockdown is dodging the punches. The shots Ironhide shoots at him, as we'll see in a minute. So there we go. But we'll hear a line in a minute. You know, Optimus saying, you know, we don't need to fight one another. And that's really Optimus. You know, the Autobots are aggressive, and Optimus is a little bit hesitant on this approach. We see, again, Bumblebee in the Halloween special 1518 Days say we're not going to pull a punches anymore to Predaking. And the Autobots are more aggressive. Optimus is the only one who's a bit more reserved. He doesn't really want to fight as much. He'll fight, but he's... At the early stages of the base battle, he's more reserved and he wants to make peace. And, you know, it's generally because Optimus understands how grave this fight scene is and how much is at stake, really. But, yeah, I think that's all the notes I have in the base battle. I think the rest I'm going to be discussing in my fight scene breakdown. Just checking the rest of my notes. But yeah, I think that's all I have for the base battle. So we're going to pan back up to the sky.
Should we chase them down
have wounded. It appears Bumblebee and some of the Dinobots have sustained injuries during the battle.
Now,
For us to press on now,
what we're going to be doing now is going on to the Starscream and Megatron fight. So we're going back up to the Nemesis right now to see Megatron versus Starscream. I love this shot of the sort of flies up from the city below, and when Megatron transforms into the Nemesis, look at that camera shake as he like lands on the ground. Well, not the ground, but the Nemesis. He sort of like shakes a whole room just before they share down with Predaking and Starscream. And when you actually look at the shots, so the window obviously that Megatron flies through, which the wind can be heard, but note that it can be heard at various volumes depending on how far or close you are to Megatron. So the further away you are from Megatron, the further you're away from the window, and thus the sound effects of like the wind and everything is a lot quieter. If you're really close, it's actually like a lot louder, like shot-wise, if you're close. And when the window closes in a moment, the wind sound effects quickly fade out. And I think there was also like a water ripple sound effect because there's water below. So I put some water as well. And we're going to hear the song in the background here. I do like this song. I'll touch upon it more in a moment. Yeah, Megatron's just been floored by Starscream. See blood on Megatron's mouth there. And that's cool because look at all the Predacons Megatron fought. Look at Optimus, Grimlock. Starscream's really the only one who managed to draw blood against Megatron. Like, think of it like that. It's insane. Starscream's punch floored Megatron. Like, full-on floored, and literally just got that lip bleeding in one hit.
I stand with you, my lord.
I like this bit where Predaking's standing with him, you know, loyal puppy dog. And it's interesting because both Predaking and Megatron, both Predaking and Starscream both plan to take out Megatron together like this because Predaking said, you know, let's take him together once I'm healed. This, as we know, didn't go according to plan. Instead, this becomes a 1v1 of Starscream versus Megatron. Even though Predaking still, you know, put a couple of blows in there against Megatron to protect Starscream, but that's only the same as what Barricade did to protect his leader Megatron against Starscream. Starscream chooses to do this on his own because he doesn't want to risk Predaking's life by fighting Megatron besides him. And also, he wanted to deal with Megatron himself, not in like a selfish way, but not selfishly like, oh, I'm the only one who can defeat Megatron. I'm the only one who's capable of defeating Megatron, even though that's kind of the truth. It's more of a personal thing, it's been building up. It's Starscream, Megatron, that's it. And these lyrics are so... When I heard this song, I was like, yeah, this is the right song. I've heard it loads of times before this film, but I already knew about the song. But each lyric, I'm just going to rewind it a little bit, just to this bit, and then we'll go back. But the lyrics are, they'll be calling me loyalty. So it's best to give me your loyalty because I'm coming for the world, you'll see. They'll be calling me royalty. And in essentially what that is Megatron saying to Starscream, best to give me your loyalty. So give me your loyalty because I'm taking this world and you'll see. And then the lyrics go, they'll be calling me loyalty. And that essentially is the old order, the new order, Predacons, my Decepticons, they'll be calling me loyalty. And that's essentially saying, Starscream, give me your loyalty. Because Megatron has plans to take over, Earth and everything like that, and, with a Matrix weapon and everything. And it's kind of like, only Megatron knows, and only Megatron is capable of seeing the grand vision, what he sees, and that's why it's kind of like, you know, I'm taking this world, and you'll see, even if Starscream doesn't see it. So give me your loyalty, essentially. And in a way, it's kind of a reverse psychology of Starscream's perception to Megatron as well, because it's essentially Megatron having the same message. You know, Starscream saying, "Best to give me your loyalty, Megatron." No, I'm taking this world, and Starscream's got his own plan, and that the new Decepticon order and the old Decepticon order will all eventually call him loyalty, and it's like this power struggle. And if you listen to the lyrics on this, you know, in the actual film, the audio is very quiet on this because it's my director's commentary. I don't want to put it too loud, but the lyrics on this, and it's very quiet. This moment, it's supposed to be very tense, but the lyrics is, you know, stranded in the open. Drown out tears of sorrow, lacking all emotion. It's really, again, and final gates to open, that lyric said, waiting for the final gates to open. It's so reminiscent of this scene, and it just said, final gates to open, waiting for the gates to open, you know, final gates to open to a new tomorrow. Sorry, I don't have the lyrics in front of me. Moving with emotion, that's what the lyrics just say. I'm just going to pause it here. So those lyrics there, it's very, very reminiscent of what's going on. You know, lacking all emotion is Megatron. He's not got any emotion apart from anger. He doesn't care for anything apart from his vision. Moving with emotion, they're both moving with emotion. Megatron's anger, Starscream with him, and moving with emotion of, you know, his authority, his leadership, his own aspirations, his desire to protect his Decepticons, and even the old order to a degree. I mean, Barricade's kind of getting on his nerves now, but, you know, Brawl, although you know, Blackout, although they did try to fight him, they're not Barricade's enemy right now, because Brawl on Blackout and, you know, the old Decepticon order are kind of seeing Megatron's insanity right now, and with this, it's kind of just all these lyrics coming together, and maybe I can make another video on it if I really need to, but the lyrics just fit so well. And just while I'm on the topic of, you know, Brawl and Barricade and Blackout, Starscream doesn't communicate with any of the Decepticons on the surface who've just fought in the base battle. However, both the old order and the new order feel the same way without speaking to each other. And on the surface, Brawl says, you guys all know I'm for fighting, but this right here is suicide, even for us. And Starscream says, after the fight with Megatron, you can't send the Decepticons back down there. It would be suicide for our troops. And without the characters speaking and knowing what each other thinks, they're both on the same wavelength. Starscream's ahead of the curve, but the old Decepticon order of like Barricade, Brawl, Blackout, you know, everyone like that, they're starting to see, without realizing it, they're starting to see Starscream's point of view. So that's interesting. Barricade really at the moment is the only one who's kind of seeing it Starscream way, but he's still on Megatron. He's sort of like 80%, 90% Megatron now, like 10 to 20% sort of Starscream side. Still against Starscream, obviously, but now he's starting to get a little bit conflicted. Barricade is, but yeah, that's, you know, an interesting thing that I kind of wanted to talk about. But it's definitely an interesting take there. I'm just gonna play it again. And all this fight, I'm going to be, you know, the actual action, I'm going to be talking about in my fight scene breakdown. Essentially, this fight was supposed to be short and sweet. Initially, I thought it was longer than it was, but little thing there, what I mentioned earlier, how Megatron shot Predaking's sword away, and Starscream just did that to Megatron's axe. But yeah, the fight I thought originally was longer, and it's when I watched it, I was like, oh wait, hang on, this is actually pretty short. But it's two heavy Transformers going against each other. This isn't like a fight that's going to go on forever, because this is, imagine a heavyweight boxing match, but worse. Essentially, what this is not necessarily who is more determined or more faster, or who can throw the hardest punches. It's not about that, or weaponry. It's not about that, or skills. It's about who can last longest, who will go down first. That's essentially it. Who can last the longest? Because with heavyweight fights, heavyweight boxing, the two biggest guys who go against each other, if they're both equal, which Starscream and Megatron pretty much are at this point, if they're both equal, it's not a matchup of stats. It's a matchup of these are two heavy hitters. Which one's going to get that lucky shot? That's all it is. Who's going to land that knockout shot first? That's literally it. We'll hear the lyrics come back into this in a second. And I do have a couple of things to say around this shot here. So the lyrics here: staring down the barrel. That essentially Megatron's mindset, because Starscream's pointing the gun at him. He's staring down the barrel of Starscream's gun. Now, this bit here, let me just try and find my notes here. Oh, where it is. So, this shot. So, when Starscream's about to kill Megatron, he's raising his rockets at him. So, we see separate shots. So, there's this bit here. There's this shot, there's this shot, and this shot, and this shot. So, those are separate shots of Megatron taking a knee, but they're all simultaneously happening at the same time. Essentially, when Starscream does this, so as soon as he deploys that, in real time, we go to this shot. Essentially, when Megatron, from that shot here to where Megatron parries it, that's essentially in real time. So all these shots are kind of happening in Megatron's mind. Like when he's this shot and the other shot with Barricade, that's all like slow motion almost. It's like he's fueling himself up for enough rage to be able to beat Starscream. So in essence, when Starscream's like, I'm not asking for final words, no speeches, nothing like that, he doesn't, because he might think, oh, he's saying he don't want a speech, but then he's taking, these, I'm killing you and be done with it. He's taken all these like 5, 6, 7 seconds to actually shoot Megatron. But no, those like 5, 6, 7 seconds where Megatron's got those shots and he's staring down the barrel, and it goes to like a vignette effect where his eyes glow red with rage. That's all milliseconds essentially. So Starscream's literally, when he's like, I'm going to kill you and be done with it, and raises his gun, instantly Starscream would be firing the missile, and it's just instantly Megatron reacts. But it's like a slow motion effect. So Starscream, he wasn't waiting to shoot Megatron for like a dramatic nature, but it was a millisecond before Megatron was like angering himself up, if that kind of makes sense. But yeah, so we'll carry on with that. And kind of backtracking a bit about Megatron and Starscream and Predaking. So if Megatron was double teamed by Starscream and Predaking, as was originally suggested, Megatron would be dead. Despite his resilience and his tolerance, because of Megatron's time away, it's unlikely Megatron would be able to kill or beat Starscream and Predaking. In his individual fights against both of them, it proved challenging. This fight against Starscream was hard for Megatron. Predaking's fight against Megatron was hard. A 2v1 Megatron and Predaking versus Megatron versus Predaking and Starscream. Megatron could have grounded or killed either Starscream or Predaking, but not both. When the other one would have been defeated or killed, it'd mean that Megatron would, need to put substantial effort into doing that because, now it's a 2v1, he's got to try even harder. So to injure or kill one of them, Predaking or Starscream, Megatron would have to be like really on top of his games, putting full max effort in. But I mean, just look at how hard it was for them to kill each other in the 1v1s, and they couldn't. Now add Predaking into that mix. Megatron again, he needs to put that substantial effort into killing one or the other, and probably focusing on one of them. Like if he was going to kill Megatron, if he was going to kill Predaking or Starscream, Megatron would have to like full on focus on that one and kind of ignore the other. But even if this was accomplished by Megatron, it would leave him open. It would leave him very vulnerable to attack by the other opponent, which would just allow them to sneak a blow in and possibly make a fatal blow at that. So yeah, Megatron would have probably been killed by Predaking and Starscream if they did a 2-on-1. This line here, just rewind a bit. This one here. There. When he says even and stops, he's like, even Soundwave, even. This is where Starscream would have died if he continued. No joke. If Starscream said, because he cut himself off, he was going to say a name. He was like, even. That line would have ended in his death. And Starscream knew that because that's why he stopped. He didn't continue to goad Megatron. Not out of cowardice, but he knew that if Starscream got himself killed by talking, he would not be able to stop Megatron at a later date, when his energy inside of him makes him stronger every day. He could wait a few months and then take Megatron on again and beat him. But if Starscream got killed by Megatron in that instance right there, by talking, he wouldn't be able to do it later on, and he wouldn't be able to keep that close eye on Megatron throughout the end of days, and he wouldn't be able to ensure that his troops and his family, almost the Predacons and Knockout, he wouldn't be able to ensure their safety. So that's why he stopped talking, not out of cowardice, but out of like a self-reflection in the moment, that what was at stake was bigger than what Starscream kind of wanted to throw in Megatron's face. Now, who was Starscream talking about when he said even? I'm not telling you. You'll have to wait until I make that story. But it's going to be a good one. I just had a drink of water. But yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I'll continue.
If you stay in charge, then it's only a matter of time before the Decepticons are wiped out. This is why the Decepticons...
Megatron only had Starscream on the ground once, even then. And when he did have Starscream on the ground at the end, it was after his fusion cannon's attacks weakened him. Punches alone probably wouldn't have been enough to topple Starscream fist to fist. Whereas Starscream and Megatron, on the ground, Starscream had Megatron on the ground 3 times, and he made him groan in pain far more than anyone else did. Everyone who hit Megatron wasn't groaning in pain as much as he did against Starscream. And Starscream, like I said, had him on the ground 3 times in this fight. Further to this, actually, was the fact that Megatron was bleeding and, even had to take a minute or so on the floor to get his head together. So this bit here, where So this bit here, after Starscream just absolutely floors Megatron, and he's on the floor and he's just doing all this dialogue. Megatron had to take a minute or two on the floor to get his head together because it hurt him so much. You know, even electrical shocks erupting from his body, you know, from his internal circuitry. Much of the same how Starscream ends up at the end of this fight, how he gets all like electronic circuitry sort of going through him. But if you kind of look, Megatron and Starscream punch holes in each other. They take shards of metal out of each other in combat, which is, I'll just quickly point it out. I'll probably talk about it more in my fight breakdown, but such as... So these shots coming up here. Starscream does it to Megatron as well, but you can kind of see these punches, like shards of metal are flying around. And even towards the camera there. But yeah, so they are punching holes in each other, taking shards of metal out of each other with them punches. In comparison to the fight scenes in Rebellion, where Starscream was fighting Barricade, Blackout, and Brawl, there were more hits, but they were slower and weaker strikes. This fight here involved a lot less, but it was far heavier hitters who were in their physical peak, so to say. So, like I said, it was just a matter of who fell to the ground first and who could withstand the most punishment over the other. But to put it bluntly, a normal character would probably die within a few hits or a couple of shots from Megatron or Starscream. Because, you know, like Silverbolt did by Predaking, they had no regenerative shield at the time, so that might be a bit different. But, you know, it's kind of like a one-shot kill almost. It's always the opposition's leader, like Optimus, Megatron, Starscream, Predaking, who are getting in each other's way and preventing them from kind of like wiping out the other or wiping out the entire army when they're in conflict with each other. But yeah, like look at the Nemesis, for example. You know, Megatron shot Skylynx once and just wiped him out and killed him. Predaking could take the shots. Optimus and Grimlock probably could take the shots from Megatron. Starscream could take the shots. And I mean, the shot that killed Skylynx was a charged shot, but look how many charged shots Starscream's taken here, and the physical strikes on top of that, like punches and kicks. So yeah, I mean, even single uncharged shots against the Predacons were enough to knock them out, whereas Starscream's taking multiple shots, even uncharged, rapid fire, and still standing. So it goes, although the fight is shorter than I thought at first, it shows how cool the fight really is when you look in the dynamics of it. But Megatron was shocked at how powerful Starscream was. Megatron was clearly thinking Starscream was still weak. And Megatron's final line to Starscream in this scene, how he's like, you're weak, you're an idiot, weak, pathetic fool. It's just an insult. Megatron's fought him. Megatron recognizes Starscream's threat, but he's kind of dismissing it in front of the others like Predaking and Barricade. And almost dismissing it to himself of the threat he poses to him and his plan, simply reverting back to insulting Starscream and trying to reawaken his past trauma to subdue Starscream and make him fall back in line. Because as we know, Megatron bullies Starscream with these tactics, and Megatron thinks that, oh yeah, although Starscream's a lot more powerful than he used to be, and I'm shocked, I think I might try these humiliation tactics to make Starscream essentially fall back in line, if that kind of makes sense there. Again, reawakening his past trauma. And hopefully making him a cowardly follower again, as per his usual status in Transformers. But this was, also an attempt that Megatron could utilize or try to utilize Starscream in his grand scheme of his plan. But, will it work? May or may not. But, this is a strong Starscream. He's not backing down, so probably not.
I still have use of you. So go see Knockout for medical repairs.
knockout. Have you seen the state
A
of
few final points about the Decepticons, though. A couple of things about Barricade, actually. So, despite Barricade being a police officer and dealing with a lot of stuff in his time, Barricade will have dealt with a lot taller opponents than him, a lot bigger and stronger. Probably mainly in his youth as a cop, like in the Golden Age saga, like when we saw him in A Cursed Gateway and Escape from Chaos. That was like Barricade's youth almost as a cop, his early days. But yeah, he would have taken a lot bigger opponents than him back in his day. And despite Barricade now being Megatron's second in command, physically his Barricade's not the strongest. He's not weak, but he doesn't even rank against Megatron, Starscream, or Predaking. Barricade's weaker than all of the other Predacons as well. In fact, the only one of Starscream's new orders that Barricade would defeat is Knockout. And if it was a case of Megatron and Barricade versus Starscream and Predaking in a full-on brawl, either Starscream or Predaking would end Barricade in probably less than 30 seconds to the start of the fight. So if you thought all these four characters in the scene were going to fight, essentially what would happen is Barricade would be instantly killed, and then it would be a 2-on-1, which I mentioned before, and likely either Megatron would have been killed and Starscream and Predaking would survive, or Megatron would have been killed and either Starscream or Predaking would have been injured or died. So it would have properly kicked off. But yeah, it's interesting. The best opportunity Barricade would have in a fight like this would be to keep a safe distance with his pistol and fire accurate shots at weak joints like eyes and limb joints like the elbows or the knees, because we see it when the fight kicks off. I'm just going to rewind it a bit. Where is it? Here. So Predaking pulls his sword out, and Barricade instantly clicks his gun. Predaking turns to see what he's doing, and Barricade says, "You want to keep that right eye." So Barricade could have taken out Predaking's eye there easily, but physically Barricade would have been destroyed afterwards. Probably, Predaking would have been like for a second, and Predaking probably would have either just swung his sword randomly in a blaze of just panic, or he would have taken a moment to compose himself and either transformed into Predaking mode or just sprinted towards Barricade and floored him. So Barricade probably would have literally shot himself in the foot here. But talking about this sort of thing probably would have given Megatron an upper hand, because Barricade is troop support at most here, not to undermine Barricade as a character. I think Barricade's character far outshines his physical attributes, and that's a good thing. But it could have maybe given Megatron a bit of an advantage by distracting Starscream and Predaking, again, by taking them steps back, taking that distance, and using his range weapons against Megatron and against Starscream and Predaking. I keep saying the wrong name there, but shooting Starscream and Predaking and distracting them, allowing Megatron to get in and attack maybe. But again, Barricade would have been taken out within 30 seconds by a missile from Starscream or Predaking or whatever. So yeah, it's nothing that Predaking or Starscream couldn't quickly close in distance or even fire a missile and kill him. So, but further to that, in Rebellion, Barricade survived some of Starscream's missiles, but this was at a point when Starscream wasn't as overpowered as he is right now. Even back in Rebellion when Starscream shot that missile, he crippled Barricade instantly. So that was enough to take him out of the fight. He shot one missile at him from his chest, and then he shot them with missiles again, all at once. Barricade brought on Blackout when they all pinned him to the ground. But once Starscream shot him with his arm-mounted missile that he had in his hand, it instantly ended the fight for Barricade. That was it. And that was then. And although Barricade is in his last night body, it doesn't amplify his attributes. It's just appearance-wise, cosmetic, really. It's not like gonna improve his strength essentially here. So now Starscream's stronger and his missiles are more powerful. Imagine what Starscream would do to Barricade now. Like Starscream would wipe the floor with Barricade. So even if we had a rebellion scenario with multiple Decepticons involved, it would be the same ending where the leaders remain, everyone else is dead. Going back to the opening scene of this movie with all the Predacons fighting Megatron. If that kicked off, it would have been just a all-out brawl where the leaders survive, everyone else is dead. Barricade is a strong and powerful ally. Not to mention he's potentially an extremely dangerous Decepticon if you consider him, generally, but not against any of the leaders. Not Megatron, Starscream, Predaking, Optimus Prime. I mean, we did see him go against Break Prime in Dawn of Corruption Part 3. But that was in Break Prime's early days as being a Prime. Like, he'd just been made a Prime. So Break Prime wasn't really aware of his own strength. And once he did kind of kick Barricade, he was, like, out of the fight, like, knocked out. But as I mentioned, Barricade's personality outshines his physical strength. And the regular Decepticons don't question Barricade's leadership capabilities. They trust him. Despite, like, Barricade being outshined in strength by Brawl, Blackout, Lockdown, Stockade. Despite those being more powerful and dangerous Decepticons, Barricade is more knowledgeable and respected amongst, the Decepticons. And, Barricade's respected against the Old Order and the New Order. Like the Predacons and Predaking and Starscream, they all respect Barricade. It's not like a respect of I admire you, like that sort of respect. It's like a respect where they respect his presence almost. Although he's annoying and they don't like him, they respect what he brings to the table. They respect how capable of a warrior Barricade is. So it's kind of like that. But, Starscream, he gave the Old Order plenty of chances, and he did try to make peace with them multiple times. He didn't try to go kill them straight away. He didn't resort to trying to annihilate them all in one fell swoop as soon as they became a problem, like a normal Starscream would do. He gave them plenty of chances to surrender. Yeah, them with their loyalty, and it's one of those things where it's probably a bit of, I don't know if it's brainwashing, but it's a bit of it's just a bit of like stubborn loyalty and refusal to change their ways. Really, they're just loyal to Megatron, and that's it. Just fast forwarding it a little bit. But those are all the notes I have on that and the characters. I try and split my director's commentary into subcategories of plot, characters, production, and like miscellaneous sort of notes. But yeah, those are all the notes I have on those. I don't necessarily have any more notes on these bits, so I'm kind of going to just chat about what I think of the scene and a few behind the scene little things as we go. But as we kind of fade into this, I do have an alien themed song that plays in the background, and I wanted to give that creepy UFO sort of feeling to this, which I think works very well.
I saw your arms. Look like a strong one too. But that might be enough to save you.
It gives us that eerie feeling that they're on a spaceship. They're actually in space aboard a UFO. It's like a subliminal messaging, because I kind of try and show it from Hot Rod's point of view, like, especially if you haven't watched Space Chase or We Are Here, We Are Waiting. if you haven't watched any of those or the poet, you're seeing this. Sorry about that background noise. It's my dog. You're seeing this from Hot Rod's point of view. Like you're waking up somewhere, blurry vision. All these noises are fading in and out, like the crowd and the the ear ringing and everything. You're slowly waking up. Your vision's getting a bit better, and you're meeting all these characters for the first time. You have no idea what's going on. You don't know who they are. Where am I? And I really try to give you that, like, the viewer right now is Hot Rod. You're exploring this place for the first time. And even if you've watched the Expanded Universe with Garnak and Kortok and Falcon, even if you know those characters, you don't know who EXO is, you don't know where Skybite is, you don't know what is going on right now. So yeah, the viewer right now is Hot Rod, and Hot Rod is the viewer. But this character right here who dies, that is not Croc. So if you look, the head is different. That's Topspin's head. And I changed the hue to like a green hue. I ripped off Croc's like a back piece where the crocodile head is, and I took off his crocodile feet on his wrists and his crocodile legs on his lower legs in robot mode. So I took all the crocodile components off, got him a new head, and recolored him. So that's not Croc. Don't worry, Croc is not dead, because Croc is in my universe. He's friends with Quake and Trigger Happy. I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill Croc. He's just like a funny guy, really. Well, he's not funny. He's a Decepticon, but I do like Croc. He doesn't really have a name though. So. But, going back to what I said, all about the Alien soundtrack, there's quite a few of these in here. That and the other tracks before and after, each one, it builds an ominous feeling for Hot Rod, and everyone kind of knows what's going on besides him. And by that, I don't mean the audience. I mean, like, the characters, like the crowd, EXO, Skybite, Garnak. They all know what's going on apart from Hot Rod. It's like that isolation.
Yes. Congratulations as always, Skybite.
Thank you, my master. Another challenger? One moment.
If you actually look at the background, so obviously we know, if you've watched a film, that Hot Rod meets Hound. Did you know we meet Hound before Hot Rod beats him? So this shot, we can see aliens in the background here. We see like a tentacle monster there. So this shot here, when we first see EXO, if you look to the top right-hand corner, and I mentioned this in my cast thoughts, you probably can't see it because of the YouTube title cutting in here, but here, just where it says stop motion in the title in the right-hand corner, there's a cage there with a transformer in it, and there's bars in front of him. That's Hound. And in these other cages to the bottom left, right, those cages are full of monsters, aliens. They're the stronger species. And the cage to the top left, where it says End of Days, that's got a tentacle monster in it, like the octopus. And there's like another tentacle monster, which is in the bottom left cage, where Skybite is. And that's got like a venom tentacle monster. So if there's two tentacle monsters, there's like an octopus, and then there's a venom one, and then there's actually another one that is near Hound's cell, but that's off camera. That's in like the corridor in the ship.
This won't take a minute.
Challenger? Oh, no, I'm looking for help. I really don't know where I am. See,
Skybite's story is really sad.
so confused.
So essentially what happens with Skybite, you might think, oh wow, this is a very big contrast to what happened in The Poet when he was happy and he's writing poems. trying to find inspiration in the universe, and now he's like brutal. It's pretty sad because what happens with Skybite is he wants to be heard. Just interjecting here, actually. We hear Falcon say something. Kortok just said that fight didn't last long, and Falcon replies, yeah, even shorter than that Silver Axe guy. That's actually Axor from Space Chase, because both Hound and Axor was taken by Kortok and Garnak. So when they say, oh yeah, didn't last long, even shorter than the Silver Axe guy, that is actually Axor they're referring to. So Axor, it's implied Axor was killed off screen by Skybite. But going back to Skybite, it's pretty sad. I love Veronica Pierce right here with the control panel AI voice. Absolutely nailed the performance. But yeah, with Skybite, it's a really sad story because essentially he wants to be kind of famous. He wants to be known, recognized, and remembered for his poems. He wants to leave a mark on the world, and he's never had an audience. He's never had a following of people who like him. And suddenly he gets an Exo's arena that he probably doesn't like at first. But suddenly he has this audience that cheering him on, cheering his name. They love him. They look up to him. They inspire him. They come to see him fight all the time. And although Skybite isn't a natural fighter, he kind of assumed the personality and basically, essentially, he's happy there because he has fans who care for him. I mean, what would happen if those fans were taken away? It's like an emotional attachment almost. That shot there was fired by Kortok.
Maybe if the ship has windows, I can break one of them and squeeze through.
I like this shot here. We'll see in a moment. But we'll see the Quintesson ship. And we see how big it is. I mean, we can see Earth, the sun, and the moon in there spinning. And it's turning because the Quintesson ship is spinning as well. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. And essentially what that is lots of UFOs on top of each other. I'm going to pause it in a second. So lots of UFOs layered on top of each other and stretched in multiple different ways to give it that weird appearance. We don't see the front of the ship with that like green tip, but you can see that on my End of Days Part 2 poster. You see the front of the ship. So when Hot Rod turns around here, damn it, I wasn't quick enough. It's really hard to get. You see Exo's guard, like Kortok and Skybite and everyone there. I might not be able to do it. There. Okay. Not a great shot, but we see them in the background there. So it's like they followed him. Because essentially Hot Rod knocked Kortok straight out. He knocked him straight clean out. And then there was a request for backup call by Falcon, and they all essentially attend. Originally, when Skybite hits Hot Rod like that, we were going to have Kortok in the background laughing because he wanted. We heard him in the background a moment ago when Hot Rod was talking to the control panel, and Kortok was like, "Wait until I get my hands on him. My head hurts." Because he knocked him out and hit his head on the floor, pretty much. So when Hot Rod gets knocked out, Kortok is like laughing to himself. But I kind of thought, as cool as that would be, we're seeing it again from Hot Rod's point of view. So Hot Rod's point of view is he's been knocked out. He don't register anything else. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. And now we're seeing it from Hot Rod's point of view again as he wakes up. And he's like, that's the third time I've been knocked out today. If you're wondering what those 3 times are, the first one was the space battle in Part 1, where he gets absolutely blasted away from the Nemesis by Shockwave. He gets knocked out then because he goes in space and then gets picked up. Second time is in the arena by Skybite, and then the third time is just now. when he's been knocked out by Skybite again.
What you doing here, kid?
Nothing. I have no purpose here. I need to get out of here. Now.
So do we all. But the only way to get out of this shit is to beat Skybite. And no one has yet.
Where are we anyway?
Exoship.
Exo?
I really like the lighting in this scene. Although it's dark and hard to see, that's the point. And this is one of the earliest scenes that I filmed in a day, actually. But essentially, this is the arena. So where we saw Hound earlier, we can see a tentacle monster in the background there, and someone to the right, which I'll mention in a minute. But when we saw the arena, it was all lit up, daytime. Everyone was celebrating. Now everyone's gone home, and by home I mean like in the spaceship, like to their quarters. Now the show's ended, the lights are turned off, everything's turned off. The prisoners get very limited light. You can see the light above them just flickering, and it's just dark, pitch dark.
Exo fears the strong ones in case of a rebellion against.
And essentially, what Exo does is go to every planet in the universe, 2 of every species, 1 of each gender, to repopulate new planets in the future so species don't go extinct from Unicron. It's kind of like a Noah's Ark, but in space, essentially. So like Hound says, it's good what he's doing, but the way Exo does it isn't great because he puts all the strong ones in the arena to be killed or throws people out in space. Public executions in the arena. Now, while the crowd love it, still a bit of a weird way for him to do it. Like, if Exo didn't do it like that, Exo would be a hero, but he's a bit twisted.
Don't get cocky, kid. And don't underestimate Skybite.
So it's implied here that Hound's already fought Skybite when he came in for the first time, because that's kind of what happens. Characters get brought in because they have this rule of they will fight Skybite once and then they will die, essentially. They ran out of fighters, so they were like, okay, everyone gets 3 chances to beat Skybite. And like Hound says, it's like you're going to hell and back 3 times. The first time is always pretty much when they get recruited, like Hot Rod in space gets found, or Hound and Axor on that weird planet in Space Chase, they get recruited, found. They would have gone straight up against Skybite, and that's their first chance. So Hound's already fought Skybite, and basically it's implied that he lost. So Hound's already fought him, and then he's also fought him again. So Hound's fought Skybite twice and lost. So Hound is on his final warning, essentially. I do love that little sound effect there when it's like Unicron and it does that little bass drop. But yeah, Hound's on his last one, and as Hot Rod suggests, they're going to fight Unicron together. They're going to fight Skybite together. So it's Hot Rod's second chance, and it'll be Hound's third chance. Now, although Hound and Axor were fighting each other in Space Chase, I like to think they would have become unlikely allies in this situation, off screen. Hound and Axor thrown in together, both fighting Skybite, 1-on-1, individually. They'll have both witnessed each other fight Skybite. Maybe they would have talked about Skybite's weaknesses. Maybe they would have tried to comfort each other almost. Not comfort each other, but had that friendly camaraderie. And essentially, Hound and Axor for each other would have been like the only thing closest to home that they have around them, apart from Skybite, who's Cybertronian, obviously. But that's the only thing they have a connection to home. So if that's gone, like if Axor was on his own and Hound was dead, Axor probably would have been a bit upset because that's the last connection to home he has. And although Quintus Under, possibly their creator, it's kind of not the same. And what Hound refers to there, saying he was following Optimus's trail, that was what we heard in Space Chase at the start. And at the end of the episode as well. But, Hound is kind of in this depressed mode where he's essentially seen Axel get killed by Skybite. And this is why Hound's a bit like defeatist attitude, where he's kind of on his own. And it's only Hot Rod who brings him hope. I love how I've animated Hot Rod as well. When he moves his arms, his wheels tend to move. And the sound effects are pretty cool as well. But Skybite isn't really like a fighter that I mentioned. The reason why Skybite is tough is essentially because of his alt mode. Because even if you have a shark that is super duper friendly, they're the most friendliest shark on the planet, they're still a shark, and if they want to, they will rip you limb from limb. That's essentially what Skybite is. And because of his alt mode, because it's big, Skybite essentially is a big, tall robot. And he's one of those lanky individuals when he's tall, but sort of slim, but he's strong if he wants to be. Not that he could choose to fight, not that he's capable of like physically like doing a 10-punch combination that he would do that, but he has weight to throw you around. And like I said, in shark mode, because of that, he's still a shark. He can still be tough. So that's essentially why Hound and Axel, who are warriors who have fought in the Great War against Skybite, who's a bit of a pacifist at the start of the poet, that's why they lose, because they're up against an opponent who is just wiping the floor with them if they want to. So yeah, but this shot here, I've paused it because I mentioned we could see the prisoners. So as we zoom out here, it might be hard to see, but we go from their cell and their cell bars slowly fade in as we go into like the corridor. So between their bars and these new bars, what are fading in another cell is like a corridor. So you got to imagine it's a corridor with two cells on the side, and the cells that Hound and Hot Rod are in the visible from like the actual arena where EXO was, where we saw him earlier. So just imagine there's like rows and rows of cells here with characters in. Now here we got a tentacle monster to the right, and we have a little black line fading in. That's a cell divider, a wall essentially. So the tentacle monster is in one side, and then we got a wall dividing him, and someone on the left there in another cell. And who that is? That's Kranix. I masked around an image of Kranix and gave him a bit of a purple hue and faded him in, silhouetted him a little bit. And that's Kranix, a G1 reference to the G1 film. Oh man, this scene here. Okay, so there were two songs I had in mind for this. This one, which I knew was the right song, and another one. And I was like, oh man, these are two killer songs. I always get this. I had it in part one when I just don't know what songs to choose. They give it a different vibe, or sometimes they give it the same vibe, but I just can't use them both, and I like them both. But I really think I went right with this.
Like it's trying to tell me something. A vision of some sort.
I feel like Ratchet adds insult to injury here. Optimus is like, oh, I don't feel good. And Ratchet's like, yeah, that's probably because of this, and this, and this. Oh, and this reason, and that reason, and that reason. Optimus, you're pretty much screwed. Ratchet's just adding insult to injury. Just like, oh, yeah, it's probably because of Megatron. And Optimus is like, oh, wait, I forgot about Megatron, and now I'm depressed about that too. Cheers, Ratchet. But we have this vignette around Optimus, and one thing is... we have this vignette because he's zoned out. He's not listening. He's zoning into the Matrix, essentially. And then he shakes, and watch the vignette disappear.
You okay?
Takes a minute to register. And he's zoning out, and he's like, there we go, the vignette's disappeared. But when Optimus says the Matrix is burning a hole in his processor, essentially what that is he's got a headache. But from the moment Megatron arrived on Earth, in the base battle before that kicked off, before Grimlock charged in and Megatron and Prime were having a conversation, the Matrix essentially were like giving Optimus a burn in his head, like a deep migraine in his mind. And even though Optimus was fighting very capably against Megatron, that entire time Optimus was mentally suffering this giant headache, and all throughout the rest of the film of part 2. And now he's zoning out. And what I like is this goes from a vignette to a fade white, which goes on to the next shot for Alpha Trion. However, look in the background of the vignette, and we see Flack and Ratchet both kind of like reach their arm out almost, like they kind of react to Optimus falling down. Like they're not quick enough to stop him, but then they're like, oh no. And then Optimus, like, his head ricochets onto the floor and like bounces up and down. And we have the music rising up in volume, and Optimus fading into the middle here. And what I love about this bit here is Optimus is like glowing white because he's alive. He's not part of the Matrix. He's like fading into the Matrix as a living being. Whereas Alpha Trion has this effect on him that ripples. And that's because it's like a recorded message through the ages. It's like a voice note. Alpha Trion's just like, yo, Optimus, sending you a quick voice note. There's this guy called Unicron and Shockwave. Probably best check about them. But the effect Alpha Trion had, he had a glow on him, like a blue hue glow. I think it was a water ripple effect that I added on Alpha Trion. And it really goes well, because it's like a old tape, like flowing through the Matrix's flow. And we have Jacob here as Alpha Trion, recasted from Robert, which is still pretty cool because it's like characters when they're millions of years old aren't going to sound the same 8 million years later. So it's kind of like Alpha Trion's a bit older now and his voice has naturally changed. You know, I don't sound the same as what I did 5 years ago, probably, or 10 years ago. I like this shot here where Alpha Trion and Optimus are face to face. Even though Alpha Trion's not really like there, we kind of see with scale what they are, like how big they are against each other. And they're pretty much equal. And a lot of this is like over the shoulder shots, kind of looking down on Optimus because Alpha Trion right now is the one in power. Optimus has no idea what's going on. He's not got control of his situation right now. And then slowly Optimus kind of like clicks on like, oh, Megatron knew about the Matrix and the Matrix weapon and Unicron because he found Shockwave's files on Moobase 1. Because Shockwave had all this stuff and he's been serving Unicron this whole time, and Megatron found out and he's returned, told all the Decepticons, and then he's coming at me wanting the Matrix and not telling me why. And just pausing it, one thing I wanted to talk about quickly is how everyone finds out. So we essentially get introduced to Unicron 3 times in this film, and it's all from different perspectives, all to drive the narrative of the story. The first time is Megatron telling everyone in the Decepticon Nemesis at the start of the film, you know, telling everyone about Matrix, Weapon, and Unicron. So that's the Decepticons getting informed. Then we have Hot Rod and Hound. Essentially, Hound has all this information now because he's been in Nexo's ship for quite a while. He knows a thing or two now. Like he said, he didn't believe it at first, but maybe he saw Unicron. Maybe Hound actually saw Unicron or like a videotape of him and now believes everything. Or maybe he's paranoid. Probably that. You know, probably the first one that he'd actually witnessed Unicron with his own eyes or a videotape. But Hound informed Hot Rod, so Hot Rod now knows about this situation. Probably not about the Matrix weapon, but about Unicron. And now Alpha Trion is giving the same message to Optimus about Unicron and the Matrix weapon and Shockwave. So now everyone is informed, and I really like that about that. And live a fantastic life. Perfect way to end part 1. And then we come in with this song right here. Absolute awesome song. Amazing. I love this song. As soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, that is the one. That's the one. FOES return. That essentially means Megatron return. I love it. So yeah, it was. Just bring myself in a bit of a better picture. Yeah, I think that's okay. So I am very happy with how this turned out. You may notice I'm in different clothes. That is because I to this in 2 parts. I tried to make it as seamless as possible. The first like hour of this was me in like some other clothes, and then I cut it, try and find where. I'll give that as a challenge for you. And then today, the second day, I'm recording the rest of this commentary. But this project had a lot of good things about it, and I'm really happy with how it turned out, because it took 4 years on and off to make. The production really picked up the last 9 months, but yeah, it was probably about as challenging as part 1 was, to be honest. I think I always say I learn things with each project I do, and that's true. I thought this one would be easier because of the bases, the base battle having like sets rather than green screen, opposed to the space battle when that was green screen. There wasn't really much green screen in this, so a lot of it was sets, whether in Nemesis or about HQ. And while that was good, the sheer amount of fight scenes took its toll. As I mentioned, some scenes I had to basically edit the footage and then edit the sound effects afterwards, and that was difficult. That was hard, but it is. I think for the next part of End of Days, it's gonna be easier. Part 6 is I just give myself like trauma thinking of that. It's gonna look fantastic, but I just gave myself some trauma. Part 3 of End of Days, part 4 will be easy to make. And I say that because although some of it could be green screened, I've not figured out how I want to do it yet. A lot of it will be practical. A lot of it is dialogue heavy. And essentially you might think, well, why are you making a project that's just talking or fights or whatever, or maybe balance the two a little bit better? The End of Days is not a part 1 or a part 2. The End of Days is the End of Days. I've split it into 6 parts because of how big it is. The End of Days movie is part 1 to 6, so it spreads the action, it spreads the dialogue, and it spreads the story. It's not meant to do each part 1, part 2, part 3. It's not meant to be the same way. It's like spread around. Everything all makes sense. Everything, the timing, the dialogue, the pacing, everything will make sense. Trust me on that, please. But yeah, it's part 5 is going to be a lot easier to make. Part 5 is the shortest, but part 3 and 4 has less action. Still have action, but it's more dialogue heavy. And whilst the dialogue is hard to animate sometimes with a mouth movement, it takes time. Once I've done that, essentially it's just like chucking it in hit film, color correction, sound effects, and that's it. It's not a huge fight scene where there's like explosions going off and there's blood and gun muzzle flashes. So the fight scenes will be, I think, a lot easier to animate in this one, in part 3, and I think I should get it done quicker than part 2, definitely, I think. But yeah, it feels good to have it done. I remember the feeling a few weeks before I finished the project, and I felt so far away, but I kept telling myself, one more session of editing, one more, keep pushing forward. And eventually I got it. And yeah, I'm really proud of myself for this. I'm looking down now because I'm looking at the screen right now. Although it looks like I'm probably like zoning out somewhere, I'm looking at the credits, what you're seeing. There was a lot of talent, a lot of new talent, a lot of like the original talent from my cast members, but like I said, a lot of new talent. And a lot of returning talent who originally weren't going to come in the project, but they decided they wanted to come. And I'm really grateful for everything, you know. I always say, whether you're a character who has one piece of dialogue or 100, you're all essential, because I could do the entire project. If you voice a character with 1 or 2 lines, I could do the entire project. But when it comes to your scene, your dialogue, only you can do that. Without your dialogue, I'll be like chasing you, like, can I have a dialogue? Can I have your lines? You know, blah, 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 blah. I can't finish the project without you. You're essential. So even if you voice 1 line, remember, that 1 line is contribution, and I appreciate it. Truly, I really appreciate it, because I can't finish 100%. Even if it's 99% and you're the 1%, you are essential to me getting 100% completion on the project. So thank you to everyone involved. And that goes far beyond the cast. That goes to the audience, the people who share it, the people who watch it, the people who follow the story and my lore. May not be the big... I have the fans who follow my story and seem to click on to little Easter eggs, and they seem to follow the story very well. A lot of people theorized that I don't think people thought about Skybite in this, but I know a lot of people thought about EXO's crew. Even though we never saw EXO, we heard about EXO. A lot of people theorized about the bounty hunters, essentially what, you know, Kortork, Falcon, Garnak. Everyone thought, oh, are those guys in this project? Where's Hot Rod? Is Hot Rod going to meet up with these bounty hunters? A lot of people put that together, and I'm like, genuinely, you know, when I saw people remembering my expanded universe, like Space Chase and We Are Here, We Are Waiting, and The Poet, I felt honored. Like, I felt touched. Really, the fact that it's kind of like a main official Transformers series where people are like putting the dots together and they're remembering things. It's not just like a series they saw on YouTube 5 years ago and forgot about. Like, they're remembering and they're putting the pieces together. And I really appreciate it. Like, genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I sincerely appreciate that. So I could go on all day about how much I appreciate it. But it looks like we're getting to the end of the credits. And I am already at like an hour right now. And this director's commentary will probably be like 2 hours now, because it's an hour from like recording today. And essentially these credits, without me even like reading them out, saying the same thing as what I've just said. You know, the messages. I have a extra message at the end that I did actually, you know, thank the universe, thank God, thank the powers that be. It did feel like for a while when I just made the expanded universes and I just kind of put this project on a hold, kind of felt like I was meant to do this, but I was just delaying it. And by trusting myself, trusting God, the universe, the powers that be, whatever you believe in, I felt like everything was correct. So amen to that. But that's all I have to say. That's the end of the video. That is the end of End of Days Part 2. So, I'm going to finally take these headphones off. And it feels weird to hear my voice without these on. But this has been a longer video than normal, like director commentary wise. And I just thought, imagine if I did a director's commentary for the End of Days Part 1 to 6 all as one big thing. Maybe I could do that when it's ended, because a lot of the production, the characters, and all those sort of notes I make throughout editing and what I've talked about here, a lot of those I've kind of got out of the way now. And obviously I'll do it for the future parts, but when End of Days Part 1 to 6 is fully done, it's all one big like 5-hour, 6-hour film, I'll have already talked about all those, so I could literally just sit down and just watch it with my thoughts as it comes. So 6-hour commentary come in the next couple of years maybe. But no, it's a good way to end it. Thank you to everyone who's watched this and the film and my universe. Really appreciate it. I better go now because I am going to TF Nation tomorrow. It's Thursday, it's the 7th of August, 2025. No, I said 24 then. So, with an Amazon Prime band that's just pulled up. Prime. So, my dog's getting restless. I think it's a sign to end the video. So, I hope to see some of you at TF Nation. And thank you again from the bottom of my heart. So take care, everyone. And transform and roll out. Till all are one. Thank you, God.